Good evening, everybody. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske. We thank you for tuning in to Teske's Tidbits tonight. A couple things to talk about. First off, the cold, not really record-breaking, but very significant cold here in central New York, along with some of the numbers for the month of January, now that we are into February. But it's not just us here in central New York and the Northeast that have been dealing with cold and snow. They had a significant record-breaking snowstorm in the Carolinas over this past weekend. And our guest coming up in the second segment will be a meteorologist from Morehead City who forecasted that storm and puts that storm into perspective. We show you some footage down there. We know a lot of folks go down to the Carolinas for vacationing, so we thought we'd share that with you. First off, we want to talk about what has just gone on, really the last couple of weeks here in Syracuse, and specifically the cold. That's kind of the big story, if you will. And I wanted to show you this. This is the last 13 days. We have not gone above the freezing mark. And for 9 of those days, and it starts on the 24th of January, goes all the way to the 1st of February, we did not touch 20 degrees. That's the second longest streak that we've ever seen in Syracuse. To go that long without seeing a temperature reaching at least 20 degrees in Syracuse. The last time we had something longer than that was in 1979 when we had 10 straight days. So you're going almost 50 years back to have a stretch of weather like that. You may be surprised, though, of what the temperatures did for the entire month. Yes, it was very cold at the end of the month, but we had some pretty mild days early on. We had a thaw there the second or the first full week of January into the second week. We even touched 53 degrees for a high. Through the 15th, we were 5.5 degrees above normal. So it took that cold air at the end of the month to bring the average down. So we were actually a degree and a half below normal for the month, thanks to that push at the end. And even with that, it was still only the 46th coldest January on record. So there were 45 other Januaries that were colder than this past February. It may have felt otherwise given what we saw at the end of the month, but that is how it turned out. Take a look at the snowfall for the month. You can see that we did have some events where we managed to see a decent amount of snow. In particular on the 15th and 16th, actually, as we were going into the change in the pattern, picking up more than 8 inches here in Syracuse. There were some spots in Onondaga County that picked up more than a foot of snow. And then you get toward the end of the month, and that Sunday into Monday, that was kind of a widespread snow. It was not lake effect. We picked up around a foot of snow out of that, and then some more snow going through the end of the month as well to kind of finish things up. So we did have quite the month in January. Our snowfall, those numbers that you see on the right are for February, but we did end up a little bit above normal for snowfall during the month of January here in Syracuse. We stand now, I can correct that total, we stand at 114 inches for the season. So that's the first part of the show. Next, we'll be talking with meteorologist Eric Hayden, a former member of the storm team who works as the warning coordination meteorologist at Morehead City. And he will go into some depth in terms of the snowstorm that fell in North Carolina over this past weekend, how they're dealing with it, and more information on that. So stay tuned for that part of Teske's Tidbits. Welcome back to Teske's Tidbits. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske. We just got through talking a little bit about the cold Arctic air that we were just in and kind of the historical significance of that. That cold air really set the stage for an unusual snowstorm down south, down over the Carolinas. And for this segment, I'm going to bring in a meteorologist from the National Weather Service, in Morehead City. He's the warning coordination meteorologist. Eric Hayden, welcome to Teske's Tidbits.
Thanks, Jim. Happy to be on.
And full disclosure, Eric worked in our office as a member of the Storm team. Let everybody know what you did when you were working with us. Some folks may remember you.
Probably just a few folks. It was a long time ago, early 2000s. I graduated from Oswego in 2002. Grew up in Maryland, but I had to go to Oswego because I love the snow. So I was mainly behind the scenes in Syracuse, but I did fill in a little bit, especially on the weekends, and then more prominently over toward Utica, Watertown, and Binghamton, New York. So 2002 to 2005, definitely roots in upstate New York, and then finished TV career up in Burlington, Vermont. So used to the snow, but not used to it down here.
Yeah. And how long you've been working? You started at the National Weather Service in Binghamton, correct? And then you've been there since. Well, you went from Binghamton to Morehead City.
That's right. So over 18 years with the National Weather Service.
Okay. Time flies, as we were talking about off the air here. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the storm, and we'll get into the details from last weekend. But give some people a sense of the area that you cover down there in Morehead City, and how much snow you typically have during the winter season.
Yeah, so our office is in Newport, North Carolina, which is just up the road from Morehead City. For any of the viewers that travel down to the Outer Banks, Duck, Kill Devil Hills, down through Hatteras Island, Ocracoke, the Crystal Coast, Emerald Isle, those are some of the beaches we cover. And then Eastern North Carolina, so Jacksonville, North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, that's where ECU plays. Those are some of our bigger cities in the forecast area. So just up the coast from Myrtle Beach and Wilmington, that's our coverage area. And with the Outer Banks, we're more prone to hurricanes, nor'easters in the winter, but usually producing rain, not snow. That's kind of what we usually deal with down here.
Yeah. So, before the storm came, what's a typical winter like down there, and how much snow do you average in a year, or winter season, I should say?
Here at the office, just a few inches of snow do we average each year. And of course, Jim, as you know, that's an average. So some years we'll go with nothing, and then some years we'll have a couple inches of snow. Farther inland, we do at least have some snow showers or flurries pretty much every year. So from Greenville through the northern Outer Banks, it's not uncommon to see snow. But it had been a while here at the office since we've seen appreciable snow. Just last year, we had 6 inches. But you have to go back to 2011 until we had at least 6 inches or more. So, once every 5 or 10 years, we can have a big snow. And I know some of us are probably laughing, the viewers in Central New York, at 6 inches. But wait until Jim and I get into how much actually fell. So a little bit each year, but this was definitely a historic one for our neck of the woods.
So in the big picture, what are the unique challenges to trying to forecast snow down there?
One of the biggest challenges is the water. Right off the coast, we've got the ocean, and then just a little bit farther south, we've got the Gulf Stream. Temperatures in the mid to upper 60s year round, or at least into the winter time. So very, very tricky with that rain-snow line, wintry mix. So those nuances are challenging. And then just the fact mentioning any amount of snow down here really gets people's attention. So if we miss it by a quarter inch or half inch of rainfall, nobody notices. If you miss an inch or two on a snowfall forecast here, everybody notices. So the biggest challenge is messaging, trying to stay ahead of it. The prior weekend, there was a bigger ice storm toward Raleigh, North Carolina. So we had just come from having some freezing rain, making sure people realized that we thought it was going to be a potentially historic storm, and that it was going to really bullseye on Eastern North Carolina and not the rest of the state that usually gets it.
So I would guess anytime there's possible snow in the forecast, it's a big deal for residents down there, and kind of the hype train gets going during the winter nowadays with social media. I'm guessing that things were kind of ramping up, a week ahead of time, probably.
Yeah, as early as the Monday before the storm. So the peak was this past weekend, Saturday night, very early Sunday. But a week out around Monday, we started messaging this. And again, our biggest challenge was making people believe it could happen. They saw a lot of high numbers from the prior storm, social media, and some of the apps that are out there. And we had to walk that back. And now we're already going into another storm. And again, this one really looks bad for our area. So starting to message on Monday, by Wednesday and especially Thursday, issuing the winter storm watch. And right at the top, we think impacts will last into the majority of next week. And as we are experiencing this right now, we've had school out Monday through Thursday. So that did come to pass with that amount of snow. But going back in the time capsule to be in the forecast chair on a Thursday and predicting something of historic proportions, certainly unnerving. I mean, just a couple inches gets people's attention, but when you're forecasting for potential for more than a foot of snow, that really gets people's attention.
Yeah, so I mean, put that into perspective. I mean, a couple of times already this winter we've been forecasting a foot and a half of snow. It's not unusual here. But I mean, and you talked about how often you get 6 inches or more. But I mean, when was the last time there was a storm that brought widespread, foot or more of snow in your area?
More than 30 years, Jim. More than 30 years. It was Christmas 1989. A lot of Eastern North Carolina saw at least a foot or more of snow. We had some higher totals down toward the Crystal Coast, but that was our messaging. Last time we had something like this was more than 30 years ago, December 1989. The benchmark still remains March 1st and 2nd. It's hard to even remember this in terms of the amounts were this high, but back in March 1980, we had 1 to 2 feet of snow in Eastern North Carolina. And we also had 20 to 30 inches in a smaller band down by our office. So this storm will rank number 2. In my opinion, it eclipses 1989 because the amount of more than a foot of snow was more widespread. One of our bigger cities is Greenville. They only had 5 inches in 1989. They had around a foot this year. So this was more widespread than 1989. The winds were very impressive, consistently 30 to 50 mile per hour winds. During the storm, we had gusts over 60 along the immediate coast and snowfall rates more than an inch per hour. So you had the heavy snow falling and then the blowing and drifting snow. We just don't usually see that amount of snow. I said more than 30 years, but the other aspect, Jim, was it was a powdery snow, more typical of upstate New York. So it really blew around. We heard about folks having snow in their attics kind of blowing in the eaves of the roofs. So very, very impressive when the snow amount, more than 30 years gets your attention, but combined with the wind and the rate, really was quite wild.
So now I'm going to put up the map. I know you can't see this, but this was from your website, and it shows your forecast area and the snowfall totals. And I'm sure this put you guys at ease down there that it was a widespread snow that was roughly 8 to 16 inches of snow, and it wasn't like lake effect where there were some narrow bands and some heavier totals. But from a forecasting standpoint, I'm guessing you were pretty happy with the snowfall totals that ended up.
Very happy. The local schools here at 5 o'clock on Friday closed school for Monday, and the snow had not even started yet. So they really value our forecast, and I'm so glad it worked out, because if you miss it by an inch or two, again, it's noteworthy. But when we were predicting more than a foot possible and it worked out, I was very happy. And we didn't have those bands like you mentioned with lake effect snow where it could be localized, but we did have these waves coming on shore, very similar to a hurricane, where you'd have the snow really pick up. At home, I have a measuring site, and we measured 6 inches in a 6-hour period Saturday afternoon. So those snowfall rates more than an inch per hour, pretty impressive down here for sure.
Okay. We're going to take a quick little break here so we can pay some bills here, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the storm. We're talking with meteorologist Eric Hayden from the National Weather Service in Morehead City, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Teske's Tidbits. I'm Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Jim Teske, and we're having a conversation about the heavy snow that fell last weekend down in the Carolinas. And my guest here this evening is the Warning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Morehead City. and former Storm team member Eric Hayden. Eric, we were talking about the snow that fell, and how did the preparation go there at the National Weather Service in terms of the storm? You guys knew something was going to happen almost a week ahead of time. And we're starting to get the word out. When it came down to when the storm arrived over the weekend, what was it like there at the office?
So the main thing of messaging is trying to get people's attention and prioritize how impactful we thought it could be. So using stronger language a little earlier than we would do, showing a probability of major impacts and describing what a major impact would be. We adjust our cadence, so we may send small updates to the community, small updates to our partners in local media and emergency managers. With a bigger storm like this, we do webinars with town officials, emergency managers twice a day. So changing the cadence, frequency, language of our briefings. We had a slide once we got a little closer, comparing it to that 1989 and 1980 storm, just kind of increasing that awareness. And then on the home front, we didn't want people to panic. We had to remind them that we're in hurricane country. We're used to staying put when there's a storm. We're used to having food, water, and medicine for up to a week because we are in hurricane season. We're one of the most prone locations on the East Coast and in the country for hurricanes. We just had to change that messaging to a winter message. And in this time, it was going to be snow falling and not rain.
So I know, it's only in the rearview mirror for less than a week. Do you feel that helped, that people are in that mind frame for hurricanes, and you kind of tried to translate that to this storm? Do you think that was able to help?
I think so. Of course, everybody jokes around about running out, getting bread and milk and things of that nature. But even the Thursday night before the storm, I ran to the store, grabbed one more thing of milk. I've got 3 growing kids, and the store still had their supplies. Recently, we just got more in. So I think that helped quite a bit. People stayed off the roads. The kids were out enjoying it. So the thing that I really stress is, we have to evacuate hurricanes sometimes. With snow, it was just stay off the roads, stay inside at the peak, and then get outside and enjoy it comfortably. Make sure you've got layers on, hat and gloves, things like that. So I think that helped quite a bit.
Talk about the process of forecasting here, and specifically, you were dealing not only with the heavy snow, something that you haven't seen in 30 years, but like you normally do in the winter, you're dealing with a storm that had a lot of winds. You had a winter storm warning out. What was the debate like in terms of whether you were going to issue a blizzard warning? Because again, you got the strong winds and you've got heavy snow falling. What was that process like?
That was stressful. So the snow forecast was one part of it, and blizzard warning criteria is extremely hard to meet. We knew we would have the winds. It's 35 miles per hour or higher. We commonly get nor'easters here in the winter, commonly see strong tropical storm force like winds in the winter. Mm-hmm. So wind threshold, we weren't worried about reaching. The visibility one is harder. It's a quarter mile, equal to or less than a quarter mile visibility. You get that quite often with lake effect snow. Down our way, it's hard to get snowfall rates and wind to cause both of those at the same time. So our messaging stuck to historic storm, more than a foot likely, impacts into next week, and blizzard conditions possible, because right along the immediate coast, they may reach it for an hour or two here and there, but it wasn't really going to change our messaging. Once the storm hit, you're staying inside, staying off the roads, no matter if we met criteria or not.
So we're recording this on Wednesday. You mentioned schools are still out. What other impacts from the storm are being felt here a few days after?
So I think that the first impact was people really couldn't go anywhere initially. We have some plows down here. It would be for the major roads like 81 for you all, Highway 70 down here. We have some interstates. So those main roads were cleared pretty quickly, but side roads like my neighborhood, our town does not have a plow. So we're relying on melting from the sun. Luckily, we did get up into the 40s for the last couple of days, but then we were in the teens and single digits initially after the storm. So it's been a process to melt it. It's going to take some more time. So just not being able to go anywhere for a while, that was one of the biggest impacts. And then here at work, staying at the office. We don't usually have a plow contract because we don't get snow. So we had to reach out and have somebody help us out and plow us out. So a lot of folks here stayed at the office during the height of the storm. We're open 24/7.
Yeah.
It's not one of those jobs where you can just say, I'm not going to make it today. So similar to hurricanes, we just planned ahead staffing wise, and we have facilities here to keep us safe, and we just hunker down during the height of the storm.
Yeah, so in a sense, you treated it like a tropical system and had yourself
We did.
staffed. Let me ask, I mean, it sounds like you were well staffed. I mean, were you pushed to the edge because of the earlier budget cuts and all that earlier last year and stuff like that?
That hasn't really affected us at the local level. Staffing wise, fluxes year to year. The main thing is just staying on top of the forecast itself. I think the storm pushed us more than anything. Just coming into the office today, we're rotating new staff in, some staff that worked, but maybe not the whole storm, trying to rotate people out to go home, just take a day off and rest. I can see the tiredness on everybody's faces, much like a hurricane. We do a really good job. A lot of adrenaline flowing up through the event. Then afterwards, we're just ready to crash. So I think the impact of the storm is the biggest thing on the office right now.
I remember when you were back here in Syracuse, obviously going to Oswego, snow was a big thing. Just like all of us up here. I'm guessing, well, obviously Morehead City hadn't had a storm like this since, you said 1989. You weren't there for that. What was it like to, dig in and look at everything and make a real honest to goodness snow forecast? It must have brought back memories.
It did. It felt really good. I'm a snow lover. Grew up just south of Baltimore. I remember the Veterans Day snow of '87 where we had thunder snow. Blizzard of '93 certainly impacted us in central New York. Blizzard of '96. I remember some of the big lake effect snows in Pulaski when I was on TV. So it felt good to get back into it. I forgot how stressful a snowfall forecast is. We did have a little practice last year. Luckily, we had that 6-inch event. But I did forget how stressful a snowfall forecast is. Hurricanes are stressful. You're thinking about evacuations. What level is the storm surge going to get to? Certainly stressful. But I think with snowfall forecasts, and Jim, you can attest to this, versus 20 years ago, there's just so many pieces of information out there. They're trying to cut through the noise and making sure people focus on official sources like the local media and the weather service. That is probably the biggest challenge.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you didn't really have any issues, or there wasn't going to be any mix in this. It was all snow. There was no is the rain snow line going to get to us? That was never an issue in the forecast process.
Luckily, not really. Hatteras Island, which is in our coverage area, and they, from the map that you showed earlier, only had a couple inches of snow. They were going to be rain, while everyone else was primarily all snow. That's pretty rare. We usually have some sort of mix issue, but it was really rain or snow in our area, and the rain was really confined to the immediate coast, specifically Ocracoke and Hatteras Island.
So that brings the stress level down right there. You don't have to worry about. You take that kind of off the table.
It does, but you know how it goes. The models, a lot of them honed in on a large amount of snow, but even leading right up to it, some were going with very, very low snow amounts. So we had to keep that message focused.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do the windshield wiper, go up and down and back and forth. So it still was stressful until that band of snow got over us on Saturday afternoon. I felt still nervous, and I'm ecstatic that everything came together like it did.
Yeah, anyone that forecasts snow, they're never really comfortable until you're finally in the heart of it, and the snow is falling and it's an inch an hour, and you're like, okay, we're in business now.
That's right.
We've been talking to meteorologist Eric Hayden from National Weather Service in Morehead City, talking about their big storm this past weekend, former storm team member. And before I leave you, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Do you think Syracuse has a chance against your Duke Blue Devils coming up in a couple weeks?
I think they've got a chance, but Jim, you and I were talking about my kids in their 18, 15, and 12 now. I'm feeling older, Jim. I remember Carlos Boozer back in the early 2000s, and now his sons are playing. Of course, Cameron, the older of the two brothers, is quite a player. So, is the game at Syracuse? I've been so. Or is
No. It's at Cameron. They don't get to come here. North Carolina does, but not Duke. So.
I still remember Boeheim in that jacket coming off one of the first times they played down at Duke.
One of the more iconic images of his coaching career.
Yeah, I think they have a shot, but if it was in Syracuse, it would be a little better shot. They look good this year. Their defense is very good, and that keeps them in a lot of games.
Well, we'll see what happens in March. Eric, thank you for joining me today.
All right, thanks so much, Jim.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.